everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, The Story Ain't Over. So today I'm coming to you with one of my favorite videos of the year to make ever. I've done this twice before, and that is the mid-year book freakout tag. So I don't know who created this tag, to be honest, but I will leave the links down below and also the list of questions. So I've done this the past 2 years in a row since starting my booktube channel, so I'll link them down below. But basically this is a tag where you kind of summarize your first half of the year and freak out about how many books you still have to read before the end of the year and kind of just look back in review. So it's the middle of June right now when I'm filming this, so it's the perfect time to do this tag. Alright, so the first question of this tag starts off strong, and that is, what is the best book you've read so far in the year? So as per usual, I have like 3 different books for this, even though I haven't read that many books this year. But the first of those 3 books is The Invincible Summer of Juniper Jones by Davin McQueen. So this is a book that I read earlier this year. I had an arc of it, and it honestly just took me so by surprise, and I kind of just picked it up and absolutely fell in love with it. It's totally different from what I usually read, but I enjoyed it so very much. It's set in 1955 in the summer, and it follows our main character Ethan Harper, who is a biracial boy who's been living in Arcadia and hasn't really had to confront his blackness. He lives with his white father, and he hasn't had the chance to see his mother in a very long time. But when something goes down at his school and he is kind of reprimanded for his actions, his father decides to drop him in small town Alabama with his white aunt and uncle, with all these small-minded people there. And this is like Jim Crow era, 1955. So he faces a lot of racism and hate while he's there, and you know, a lot of the people there are bent on showing him that he's not welcome there. But he makes a friend in the town oddball named Juniper Jones. And this is honestly one of the most tender and sweet books I've read ever. It features a really beautiful platonic friendship, a wonderful summer, 2 kids who are kind of trying to figure out their childhood and are experiencing things very differently because of their race. This deals with racism in a very strong and powerful way. And it's also a total tearjerker. So bring the tissues if you're gonna read. The next book that I consider a favorite of 2020 is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I cannot go without mentioning a Marie Lu book ever, but I honestly love this so very much, and it just took me by surprise because it's very different from her usual thing, and it was just so astoundingly beautiful. This is also, interestingly enough, a historical fiction, but it has a bit of fantasy in it, and it follows Mozart and his sister as they are growing up and kind of the magical worlds that they get embroiled in. But it's told from the perspective of Mozart's sister Nanowrimo and her personal experience as being a woman in that time and being a female musician and not getting the recognition that she deserved. And then the third book that I consider one of the best books that I've read of 2020 is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. This is one that took me also by surprise. I kind of wanted to read it because a lot of people had kind of talked about it. I'd seen a lot of great Goodreads reviews and I was just interested in the topic. This is a memoir, and the author was born in North Korea and grew up there and eventually escaped. And so this is her story and her life journey, and it was honestly the most harrowing book I've ever read, but also the most hopeful, and I loved it for that reason. So yeah, highly recommend if you're gonna pick up a nonfiction book soon. All right, the next question is the best sequel you've read in 2020. So funnily enough, I actually lent this book to a friend very recently, so I don't have it with me, but that is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. And I actually have not read that many sequels this year. I've only read 2, so it was this one and The Hand on the Wall, and personally, out of the 2, I like this one better, but this wasn't like the most amazing sequel I've read. It was just good between the 2, but I did really enjoy this in terms of the fact that I wasn't really feeling the Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare that has been coming out for the past few years. So this is the start of a new series, The Last Hour, so it's technically not a sequel, but I'm counting it as a sequel because it takes place after The Infernal Devices. And I really enjoyed it. I loved seeing a lot of the characters again in different ways, because a lot of the characters in The Infernal Devices are a lot older in this series. But yeah, overall, enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite Cassandra Clare book, but I did enjoy it. All right, the next question is a new release you haven't read yet, but want to. And so I have 2 for this as per usual. So the first one is Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown, and the other one is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jaigirdar. So both of these I'm very excited for. This follows our main character Echo Brown. It's also kind of a memoir, but with a sci-fi fantasy twist. The main character is also a wizard living in East Side Cleveland, dealing with her everyday life, and that's all I really needed to know. Like, the fact that she's a wizard is just so interesting to me, but it's also kind of set in real world. And then this one features a sapphic romance between these two girls competing in like a henna competition of some kind. I actually don't know that much, but just the fact that it was South Asian, involved henna, and like a sapphic romance was enough for me to want to read this. So yeah, I purchased both of these very recently and I am so excited to read both. All right, question number 4 is your most anticipated release of the rest of 2020. So I have 2 for this, obviously. So both of them are fall releases. So the first one is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This comes out, I think it's September, and I have an ARC, which is very exciting. So I'm hoping to read this very soon. But this is kind of a thriller. It involves fame and also has a bit of a Me Too aspect as well. That's all I really know, because I don't want to spoil it for myself, because Tiffany D. Jackson books are just awesome and amazing, and I have loved every one of hers that I've read. So I'm very excited to pick this up. And then the other book that I'm very excited for is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab. Love her books. I'm very excited for this one because, as she has said, this is her one book that is kind of a romance. So really excited about that aspect of the book. And it's also kind of historical, goes through a lot of time, I think, and it's about this girl who enters a deal with the devil to become immortal, but the devil in turn makes it so that she is forgotten by every single person that she meets along the way. And so it's like, what's the point of an immortal life if you are basically invisible? So I'm very excited to just see how that plays out. And I've seen some people have early copies and read them and put up their reviews, and most people have said really great things about it. So I'm very, very excited about it. All right, the next question is your biggest disappointment of 2020. So I don't really like dragging books, and this isn't really a drag because this was honestly just a misconception of my own. But my biggest disappointment was Of Curses and Kisses by Cynthia Menon, only because I read a lot of great books this year, and also because I expected this to be something it was not. I was expecting it to be a lot darker and more mysterious. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling set in a boarding school academy following a Indian princess and a like English lord, and I was expecting it to be very angsty and dark, romantic, and not so happy, I guess. I was expecting it to have like an older YA vibe rather than what it was. I think it had a similar vibe to a lot of Cynthia Menon's other books, which is just like a fun rom-com-y vibe. And for some reason I thought that this was going to be a little bit different, but it wasn't, which is totally fine. So it's not like this book was bad, I just had really different expectations of it, so I was kind of disappointed by it. And then the next question is your biggest surprise of the year, and I've already talked about this book, but that is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. I was just so surprised by the fact that I really loved this book. I can't say I enjoyed it because there's some really terrible things that happened to her throughout the course of her life that she outlines in this book. But I think I was surprised by the fact that I liked reading this memoir. I'm not usually into memoirs. I don't really pick up nonfiction that often, but I ended up really loving this and holding it very dear to my heart, and it's become one of my favorite books ever. So that was just a really huge surprise to me. All right, the next question is to name your favorite new author. So whether they are a debut author or a author that you've never read before, so they're new to you. So for me, I'm going with Jananie Lee, the author of Anna K. I read this book I think when lockdown started, and absolutely fell in love with it. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but I had seen a lot of like great reviews from booktubers and bookstagrammers that I really like, and so I kind of just bought it on a whim and started reading it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It is a retelling of Anna Karenina, but with a half Korean main character, and it is set in our modern day, and it was such a fun, sexy kind of YA romance, but it felt really different from the regular YA that I'm used to, so that was really nice. It was definitely a bit on the older side, but the reason I'm picking Jananie Lee as my favorite new author is because I loved her writing style in this. It's kind of very big and broad strokes, and it's told in third person, and it kind of sweeps through different characters and their different perspectives, and it's kind of similar to Anna Karenina, the actual novel by Leo Tolstoy, but I just loved how she told the story, and there is a sequel coming. I forget what it's called, but I will put the cover here. I'm so darn excited for it. Alright, the next question is your newest fictional crush. So I have like 10 different people for this. So first I have the two main characters in The Tiger at Midnight, Isha and Kunal, because they're both just awesome and badass, and I love them both. Kunal is kind of this sweet, soft boy, and he's such a muffin, and I love him. Like, he's just trying so hard to be good, and he's a soldier that's realizing he might be on the wrong side of things. And then there's Isha, who is an assassin and a spy, and so badass, but she's also really sweet and cares a lot for her country and for its future. So yeah, both of them are just great, and I've realized my new type is like cutthroat, badass, awesome, unapologetic girls, and like soft muffiny boys. And on that note, I also wanted to say I really like Malik and Karina from A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. So I don't have the physical book with me, but I am currently reading this on audiobook and in love with it. And I just love these two characters. Malik, similar to Kunal, is a soft muffiny boy, and Karina, similar to Isha, is a cutthroat girl. So I just love them both, and they're just great. I also really like the audiobook narrator for Malik, so I think that's kind of affecting my judgment, but yeah. All right, the next question is your newest favorite character in a book. So again, I have like 3 different people for this. So the first one is Sky Shin from I'll Be the One. I love this main character. She is plus size, she is fat, she's also bi, and she wants to become a K-pop star. And she is just so unapologetic and so strong-willed, and is just trying her best to live her life the way she wants it without letting anyone else get her down. And I just love that vibe of hers and how positive she is throughout so many of the things that happen in this book. And overall, it was just such a treat reading about her, so I loved her as a character. Another character who is very similar to Sky Shin is Liz Lighty from You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I loved this character. She is both sarcastic and hilarious, but also really fun and positive. She is also very sweet. She's also queer. She is in a romance with another girl in this book, and she's trying to find the balance between, you know, doing what she needs to do and also being true to herself. And I love the book for that reason. So yeah, I just love Liz Lighty. She's just so hilarious and like kind of sarcastic, and I liked her voice. A similar character to that is the main character in Historically Inaccurate by Shea Bravo. The main character's name is Saul, or Soledad, and I love her narration slash voice in this book. She's also a very sarcastic character, but has like this self-deprecating humor that I feel like is very common in people my age. So I really love that, and I kind of really vibed with that in this book. So she's another favorite character of mine. I just love the way that she acts, and it's got really great banter in this book as well, so loved it. All right, the next question is a book that made you cry. So again, I have 3 books for this, and ironically enough, they are the 3 books that I picked as the best books of 2020, and they are In Order to Live, Yeonmi Park, The Invincible Summer of Juniper Jones by Davin McQueen, and The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I've already told you why. These are awesome, but all 3 kind of hit me in a very powerful way, which is why I cried for them. I cry quite easily for books and movies, so that's not surprising, but all 3 of these have kind of sad elements to them, but are also the kind of stories that hit you really deep and leave a very lasting impact on you. The next question is to name a book that made you happy. I've already talked about all 3 of these books, but 2 of them are I'll Be the One by Lila Lee and Historically Inaccurate by Shea Bravo, and then the other one is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. As I said before, all 3 of these books have kind of like unapologetic main characters, cute romances, and just have a fun kind of contemporary element to them. And those are always the kinds of books that kind of put a smile on my face, so I love them. All right, the second last prompt is what is the most beautiful book that you bought or received this year? And for me, that's probably going to be the 2 editions of The Kingdom of Back that I have by Marie Lu. So this is the one that I bought myself, and then this is the one that came in the Owl Crate box for, I want to say March, I'm not really sure, but I just find this so beautiful because it's a lighter version of the cover, but also it's got silver stained pages, if you can see that. But both of these are just gorgeous. I love this cover and the beautiful kind of glowy blue, and it's just so magical, and I love it. All right, and the last question is one that I feel like is kind of useless because there's no way to really answer it, and that is, what books do you need to get to before the end of the year? And can I just say all of them? Because all of them. I recently put up a video about my recent reads and some books that I want to pick up very soon, so those are some. And then there are a bunch that I've mentioned in a lot of other videos, like books I want to reread, and a lot of the books that I've mentioned on TBRs that I have not gotten to yet. But yes, I think my one main goal for the rest of the year is to continue to read a lot of books by Black, Indigenous, and POC authors. That is my main goal. That was my goal from the beginning of the year, but it's kind of been amplified with everything going on, so that is like my main goal, and I've been doing really well. I think majority of the books that I've read have been by Black and POC authors. I'm going to pick up more Indigenous authors as well very soon for a readathon that is coming very soon. But yeah, I have a whole TBR cart of books that I also want to read as well, so there's that, so you can go check out that video if you want to see me putting those books on my TBR cart. But overall, yeah, I just got a lot of books behind me that I need to read, and I'm hoping to read. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's always one of my favorite videos to film and to go through and kind of think about what I've read previously in the first half of the year. And I'm a lot more happy with my reading this year, I think, than previous years, because I feel like I've picked up a lot of meaningful, great books in the first half of this year, even though I've picked up less. But I think that's kind of working for me. I'm focusing less on the number of books that I'm reading this year and more on the kind of quality and the ones that I want to pick up. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that the story ain't over. Bye.